So there was a very interesting change yesterday that happened on the Packers official site. And that change is that former Packer QB Alex McGough is now listed as a receiver on Packers.com under the roster section. And so McGough, who came to Green Bay last July, former USFL MVP, did not make the final roster to begin last season, was then placed on the practice squad. He is no longer seemingly a quarterback here on this Packers team. He has now moved to wide receiver. And so when we look at this move, odds are it has to do with the fact that the Packers drafted another quarterback in this past 2024 draft. They used one of their 7th-round picks on quarterback Michael Pratt from Tulane. And the thing with the Packers in their QB room, that would now make, if Alex McGough was still listed as QB, that would make 4 quarterbacks on this Packers roster. The thing is, last season, the Packers only kept 2 quarterbacks on the official roster as officially there, with Sean Clifford and Jordan Love, and then McGough was on the practice squad. So odds are that McGough probably won't even make it to the practice squad if he stayed at QB, because there's just really no need to have 4 quarterbacks on your both roster and your practice squad. And so I guess they're experimenting and seeing if maybe he can have a chance at making it at wide receiver. And I was trying to look through his past to see if at any time in his career he played wide receiver. I was trying to look up to see if maybe he played in high school. I couldn't find anything. A few other articles I read, no one else seemed to have an idea that he played wide receiver at any point in the past. And so I don't know if the Packers just look at him as an athlete and say, well, he's a better chance making it as a wide receiver on this team than a quarterback. I'm just not sure, because when you look at the Packers in their wide receiver room, there are so many different wide receivers here that are very talented, which is why the Packers didn't use a single draft pick on a receiver, because they've been drafting wide receivers for the past few seasons. We got Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Malik Heath, Bo Melton, Grant Dubose, Samori Toure, and then Thyrick Pitts, and now Alex McGough. So I think the odds of him making it on the Packers roster are probably 0, the 53-man roster. I doubt he makes it on the practice squad as a receiver, just because you have these other guys who have been playing receiver their whole life. But there must be at least something in the Packers' mind where they think he could become a receiver if they're placing him there. I doubt that they would just do that if they thought that there was no chance. So maybe there's a slight chance that he could be a good receiver. Who knows? He's 6'3", 214 pounds, so somewhat sizable guy. He ran a 4.62 40, so not super quick. He is 28 years old, and I'm just really not sure if he has a future here in Green Bay. Maybe if the Packers didn't draft Michael Pratt, he would have stayed around, maybe been the practice squad QB once again. But now that Michael Pratt is here, odds are his time as quarterback seemed to be over, at least on the Packers, and now it looks like there's going to be an experiment when it comes to wide receiver. And when we look at Michael Pratt and the Packers' willingness to draft him in round 7, there are lots of draft experts who thought he could maybe even be a round 4 draft pick. The Packers and Matt LaFleur sounded pretty surprised that he lasted all the way till the 7th round. They thought they got some good value there. And Brian Gutekunst had mentioned in past press conferences in the past few months during the offseason, the Packers always want to be building the quarterback room. And I fully understand that. The Packers are probably one of the best teams in the past few decades when it comes to their investment in quarterback and just their success, going from Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, now Jordan Love. And the thing with quarterback is you're always very close from being in a really bad situation if your starter gets hurt. So many different starting quarterbacks got hurt last season. Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, a ton more. And so let's say Jordan Love ever gets injured. Sean Clifford, the Packers seem to be pretty confident in what he's done, 5th-rounder draft pick last year coming into Green Bay. But you never know. You want to have as much competition as possible at every position to push guys and make them continue to take strides forward. And so if Jordan Love ever got injured, it's nice to have now 2 quarterbacks where you may be somewhat confident in. Maybe Pratt pushes his way past Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford does have a year more of experience in this Packers system and learning from Packers QB coach Tom Clements. But the Packers seem to be pretty confident in Pratt, and there's some draft experts who thought he could potentially be a borderline starter one day and a solid backup. So the Packers seem to get a solid QB in Michael Pratt, and he's good enough that the Packers have decided that that Alex McGough is no longer going to be a quarterback here in Green Bay. And so looking at, McGough, he was USFL MVP. Before that, he was drafted in the NFL in 2018, 7th rounder, but he never started any games. And so he found success in the USFL. I guess the competition, though, is not at an NFL level. And so because of that, he seems to, lost that spot on this Packers roster. So unless there was a glitch in the system, it looks like McGough is now a receiver. And I'm curious to watch how this develops and what happens here with McGough to see, if he's actually able to compete for a spot and if he actually has a chance. I'm curious to see. Maybe he has some, sneaky wide receiver abilities that just I had no idea of. We'll see what happens here in OTAs and as time goes by. I'm curious to hear if Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst or any coach comes out and gives us any more insights into exactly why this move happened. Another interesting thing to note about the Packers and how they operate when it comes to QBs, there was a quote I read in a article from PackersNews.com from last year during around OTAs, and it was a quote from Matt LaFleur, and he was just talking about the difficulty when it comes to having 4 quarterbacks on the roster, just the difficulty of getting enough snaps for everyone. He said this: I just think it's really, really difficult to get 4 guys the amount of reps that you need to get in order for them to show what they can do, said LaFleur during OTAs. Certainly, there's times where you have a veteran guy like we've had in years past, where you're not going to play in the preseason, then it's a little more doable, but it's really hard. Jordan needs a ton of reps. They all do. So how do you divvy those up? If we feel like we need a 4th, certainly we will bring one in. And that's from last year, not talking about now. But the Packers, and especially now that they have 2 very inexperienced guys backing up Jordan Love in Pratt and Sean Clifford, I'm guessing that the Packers didn't want to have McGough in there as well, having to get him snaps. They probably want to, move all of those McGough practice snaps to both, Jordan Love, of course, but Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt, so they can, take more steps when it comes to development. We'll see if the Packers actually add another quarterback. I just don't see why they would at this point, now moving Pratt to wide receiver. So some interesting news that came out. But if you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.